Kunja Bihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Gopijana Baba Girivardhari
Gopijana Ballabha Girivardhari
Gopijana Baba Girivardhari
Gopijana Ballabha Girivardhari Jashodanandana Brajjanarandana Jashodanandana Brajjanarandana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari
Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari
Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jashodanandana Brajjanarandana
Yashodanandana Brajjanarandana
Jashodanandana Brajjanarandana
Yashodanandana Brajjanarandana
Jashodanandana Brajjanarandana
Tiravanachari
Yamuna Tira Vanachari
Yamuna Tiravanachari
Yamuna Tira Vanachari
Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Kunja Bihari
Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Kunja Bihari
Jaya Radha Madhava ki Oh, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
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 Narayanam Namaskritya
Narayanam Naranam Namaskritya
Naram Chaiva Narottamam
Naram Chaiva Narottamam
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam
Tato Jayam Udiraye
Tato Jaya Mudiraye
Nasta Praeshu Abhadresu
Nashta Praeshu Abhadreshu
Nityam Bhagavatam Sevaya
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati
Bhagavati Uttama Sloke
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke
Bhaktir Bhagavati Naistiki
Bhaktir Bhagavati Naistiki.
By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam, by rendering service to pure devotee, all that is troublesome within the heart becomes destroyed to nil, and thus loving service unto the glorious Lord, whose praise is chanting down hymns, becomes established, is an irrevocable fact. For reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, we first of all offer our respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Lord Narayana, unto Narayana Rishi, the supermost human being, Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and Srila Vyasadeva, the author. So we're reading still from the 18th chapter, first canto, Srimad Bhagavatam, and it's text number 49 today. So on the board, please repeat. Iti putra krita gena Iti putra krita gena So nutapto mahamuni So nutapto mahamuni Swayam Viprakrito Rajan Swayam Viprakrito Rajan Naivagam Tad Achintayat Naivagam Tad Achintayat Iti putra kitagena Sonutapto mahamuni Swayam viprakrito rajan Nivagam tarachintaya Iti putra kritagena Sonutapto mahamuni Swayam viprakrito rajan Naivagam tarachintaya Iti putra kritagena Sonutapto mahamuni Swayam niprakrito rajan Naivagam tarachintayat
Iti putra kritagena Sonutapto mahamuni Swayam viprakrito rajna Naivagam tad achintayat
Iti putra kritagena Sonupapto mahamunihi Swayam viprakrito rajna Naivagyam tadachintaya
Someone else?
putra kritajena.
Iti putra kritajena.
Sonutapto mahamuni.
Sonutapto mahamuni.
Swayam viprakrito rajna.
Swayam viprakrito rajna.
Naivagam tad achintayat.
Naivagam tad achintayat.
Iti putra kritajena.
Iti putra kritajena.
Sonutapto mahamuni.
Sonutapto mahamuni.
Swayam viprakrito rajna.
Naivagam tad achintayat.
Iti putra kritajena.
Iti putra kritajena.
Sonutapto mahamuni.
Sonutapto mahamuni.
Swayam viprakrito rajna.
Swayam viprakrito rajna.
Naivagam tad achintayat.
Naivagam tad achintayat.
Okay. Iti.
Iti.
Thus. Putra. Son. Trita. Done by. Agena. By the sin. Saha. He, the Muni. Anutaptaha. Regretting. Mahamuni. The sage. Swayam. Personally. Vipakritaha. Being so insulted. Rajna. By the king. Not. Eva. Certainly. Agam. The sin. Tat. That. Achintayat. Thought of it.
What?
Everybody's finished and then she said, thought of it. Last thing.
Okay, translation, please repeat. The sage thus regretted the sin
Sage thus regretted the sin
committed by his own son. He did not take the insult
He did not take the insult
paid by the king
paid by the king
very seriously.
very seriously.
The sage thus regretted the sin committed by his own son. He did not take the insult paid by the king very seriously. Srila Prabhupada's Divine Purport. The whole incident is now cleared up. Maharaj Parikshit's putting the galling on the sage with a dead snake was not at all a very serious offense. But Shringi's cursing the king was a serious offense. The serious offense was committed by a foolish child only. Therefore, he deserved to be pardoned by the Supreme Lord, although it was not possible to get free from the sinful reaction. Maharaj Parikshit also did not mind the curse offered to him by a foolish Brahmana. On the contrary, he took full advantage of the awkward situation. And by the great will of the Lord, Maharaj Parikshit achieved the highest perfection of life through the grace of Srila Sukadeva Goswami. Actually, it was the desire of the Lord, and Maharaj Parikshit, Rishi Samika, and his son Shringi were all instrumental in fulfilling the desire of the Lord. So none of them were put into difficulty because everything was done in relation to the Supreme Person. Translation: the sage thus regretted the sin committed by his own son. He did not take the insult paid by the king very seriously. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. I'm going to breeze through this purport once again. The whole incident is now cleared up. Maharaj Parikshit's galling the king, galling the sage with a dead snake was not at all a very serious offense. But Shringi's cursing the king was a serious offense. The serious offense was committed by a foolish child only. Therefore, he deserved to be pardoned by the Supreme Lord, although it was not possible to get free from the sinful reaction. Maharaj Parikshit also did not mind the curse offered to him by the foolish Brahmana. On the contrary, he took full advantage of the awkward situation, and by the great will of the Lord, Maharaj Parikshit achieved the highest perfection of life through the grace of Srila Sukadeva Goswami. Actually, it was the desire of the Lord, and Maharaj Parikshit, Rishi Samika, and his son Shringi were all instrumental in fulfilling the desire of the Lord. So none of them were put into difficulty because everything was done in relation with the Supreme Person. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport to the 49th sloka, second to last verse of the 18th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Parikshit cursed by a Brahmana boy. Om Adinati Miladasha Gananjana Shilakaya Kakshun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, who has opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge, although they were shut by the darkness of ignorance. Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who has established the mission of Lord Chaitanya in this material world, give me shelter under his lotus feet. So the fruited workers are all endeavoring so hard to enjoy life in this world. And there's, we all are quite familiar with it, so we don't have to really elaborate upon it a lot, but they're completely absorbed in their recreation, in their money pursuits or their occupations, their families, but to speak of their communities and nation, and all the politics and economics that go along with this. And they relax, through some sort of recreational facility, whether it be going to the gym or watching, being a fan of some team, or even teaching young people some sport, or swimming themselves, playing golf is quite popular. Just so many things they do, completely absorbing their minds in these things. And all of it, what is the result of all of it? Of course, there is religion, and although they may not completely renounce the world, they certainly, there's some quest for salvation to deliver them, after this life is finished. But there's never, practically speaking, even the thought of mitigating this enjoyment. But they see the enjoyment sort of in relationship with God. But unfortunately, it's all in relationship with God's inferior kingdom. So, what can God do when his very dear parts and parcels are very intent on enjoying this creation? They, certainly the vast majority of them, do not want sinful reactions. They do not want to suffer in some hellish situation. They don't want these things. But they certainly do want material opulence and enjoyment. The world is so full of contradiction that despite them wanting all this and thinking even that they're living piously and they're just living a nice material life that God has blessed them with, still they're lurking in the background, even without their knowledge, of many, many dark, sinful reactions that come from the grotesque slaughter of so many animals in the world that is supported by the vast majority of these human beings. So it's Prabhupada used to see it like a house burning down. The house is burning down and everybody's still trying to enjoy. So, somebody has to say, there's a fire. Get out, it's urgent. But now and then you'll still get people saying, that, don't be so fanatical. It's none of your business. Don't interfere. But the fact of the matter is that, the house is burning down. There's no peace because even though the vast majority of them depict themselves as peaceful, still they're destroying the whole animal kingdom. Literally destroying it. There's very little wildlife left. They've destroyed it. And they've taken all the domesticated animals and have given them, a life equivalent, even worse than the Holocaust. And yet, they pray every Christmas at least for joy and peace. It's the same God in the heart of the animal as in the human being. What can that God do when these foolish creatures? So he, attempts to inform them. He somehow ever works through the heart of the social activist that is completely against this sort of thing. He works through the hearts of his devotees to try to teach the people the truth of the matter, the law of karma. In this way, our Krishna consciousness movement is actually, gaining some foothold or some progress in teaching the science of Krishna consciousness, whereby, the world can truly become peaceful and joyful. Just slowly but surely, day by day and step by step. We're wearing away at the illusion, the great illusion, the veil of Maya that covers everyone's mind from actually seeing Krishna and understanding, what Krishna wants and how to actually be peaceful and harmonious in relationship to him and his creation. So the offenses that are going on now are not being done by a foolish little boy, even though he's the son of a Brahmana. They're being done by adults who completely support their activities and even on the basis of some religious scripture. And, they won't be able to escape the sinful reaction. So it's a little bit different than the situation being described here. Here you have a foolish son of a Brahmin, by the will of providence, it was all set up for us. It was set up so that thousands of years later, Lord Chaitanya would have some solace when he appeared. He appeared, and he enjoyed his dharma of being the greatest pandit. But then it becomes old after a while to just defeat ever pandits who continue to go on in material life and take themselves to another material destination, having failed to take advantage of their human form of life and to attain complete freedom. It began to gradually sadden Lord Chaitanya as he matured, so to speak, into an adult who generally takes life more serious. And there was no solace in this world for Lord Chaitanya other than the Srimad Bhagavatam. And that has come down to us in the form of Prabhupada's books. The most important thing being to distribute his books, to save humanity. So it was Krishna's arrangement that this little boy take birth in this great Rishi's house, and that he gained great Brahminical prowess, but yet remain immature. And become capable. You have to be capable to perform such a crime. Most people couldn't do it because they didn't want to have to suffer from that sort of reaction of killing the king of the land, unless they were a real criminal, and then that person wouldn't have the ability to kill the king. But this Brahmin boy is a Brahmin. That means he's supposed to be in the mode of goodness. It means he's supposed to be peaceful and gentle and supportive of the king. The king carries out the order of the Brahmin. So, who could do this crime other than some foolish kid who had the power to do it? So by Providence arrangement, he has this prowess and becomes angry over a small offense to his dad. And he curses the king of the land that's giving everyone shelter in the land, practically speaking, including even his father. He completely overlooks the greatness of the king, the goodness of the king, who the king really is, and begins the infamous Kali Yuga tit-for-tat mentality. Oh, you've said this? Well, guess what? You're going to get this back. And this way people develop such tremendous enmity amongst one another, because none of them can be tolerant like Lord Chaitanya. None of them can be proudless like Lord Chaitanya. None of them can be respectful to ever-living entities like Lord Chaitanya, nor humble like him. Instead, they become angry like a demon and do something to simply retaliate what they felt was, offensive to them, disturbing to them. It's the typical Kali Yuga mentality. But Pritchett didn't act like that. He could have counter-cursed the kid. Could have cursed him. All right, may your whole family be condemned to hell. For infinite generations, you demoniac little hypocrite. He could have done that. But he didn't possess that type of mentality to do that. So he was also under Krishna's influence completely, because there was a plan. The kid would curse. The father would be an example of not condemning his son. I mean, it's an embarrassment to the family when your son does something so terrible. He could have condemned them. Get out. Go away. We don't want to see you again. What you've done is despicable and unpardonable. It cannot be pardoned. You know, we won't have our family. You're an embarrassment. We don't want to see you again. But no, he took the kid by the hand. He went and saw Parikshit, and he asked him to forgive him. He asked Krishna to forgive him. And he taught the child, what you have done wrong. So he played the role of a perfect father. And simultaneously, he was a wonderful and good Brahmana. And an example for humanity. He corrected his child, and he taught what is actually right. And then, last but not least, was Parikshit. It had to all be arranged. Because, this wasn't an ordinary offense that the kid made to him. This is a great offense. He took his life away. He gave him only 7 days to live. I mean, all he did was insult the sage by picking up a dead snake and putting him around. All right, that's pretty bad. But then to curse someone to die immediately, it wasn't like he was a bad person. He had all sorts of people hating him. But he was loved by everyone. I mean, it's like if you have someone in government that's doing good for everyone. Mother Leelavata doesn't have to worry about a house because the president is so noble. He says, don't worry about it, we'll take care of it. I mean, he was like that. No one worried about anything. The king was there. It was like, we can only make an equivalence of this by looking in some small, insignificant community where you have, by coincidence, some person born there who just takes care of the whole community. They become the mayor or the sheriff, and they take care of everything. I mean, they make movies about these kinds of people all the time. But it's not a leader of the whole world. It's just somebody in one little insignificant community, with 10, 20,000 people, And they take care of all of them. The king was like that. He took care of everyone. Everyone was protected by, his strength. Spiritual and material strength. So, but, Parikshit didn't count a curse. Instead, he prepares for the inevitable. He's being moved by providence that I will now go to the Ganges and I will sit there and fast and I will question the holy people there, the sages, the brahmanas, the saints. I will question them about what every person should do when it's time for their death. I mean, this is a significant question because he's been taking care of all the people, so now just see how he's thinking. I will need to go and inquire so people will know what they need to do at the time of death. Because all my people, they're all going to have to die, so what should they do? I need to show them what to do. I need to go inquire. What should a person do who is about to die? I mean, most people, they what do they do? I mean, so many of the people in the world, I mean, some of them hear from their scriptures, but others, they just remain entrenched on their life in this world, and they're surrounded by their family, and they're all crying, and they're just remembering things. How nice it was, and how wonderful it was, and don't worry. And the person usually falls into a coma, and, there's no communication. Even if they can hear, all they're hearing is the wailing and memories of their family. And who knows where they move on to. But Parikshit, he's inquiring. What should a person do at the time of death? And then Krishna arranges for the son of Vyas to appear on the scene, who himself has heard the Bhagavatam while within the womb of his mother and has become expert at reciting it. I mean, here we going through a class every day, but he's rattling off in this beautiful Sanskrit poetry and prose, these, this holy mantra, the Srimad Bhagavatam. And it's like being in a movie theater where, you don't have a moment to so much critique it because it absorbs you. And, it makes you cry for certain scenes and makes you angry at other scenes. So Pritchard's, he's chanting these slokas and Pritchard's hearing it. He can understand the language. He's hearing it. And every now and then he's moved to again question the sage about what he's been talking about. And all of this is about Krishna. Yes, this is what a person should do at the time of death. They should hear about Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so when the Lord arranges, Providence arranges for this to happen so that this book can be spoken and Vyasadeva can record it. And then eventually it can be, passed down, through the Kali Yuga. It was a terrible time when Kali Yuga set in. Everything was being destroyed in Vedic civilization. Then Lord Chaitanya appears on the scene. And he takes this one book as the all in all. He didn't take the life of a Kshatriya as an all in all and try to turn back the inevitable dismantlement of Vedic civilization by the Mlecchas and the Yavanas. Instead, he starts to teach everybody Srimad Bhagavatam, same thing. Everyone has to die. Why are we so attached? What's going to happen to you at the time of death? Where are you going to go? What good is your house going to do you then? Or even your children? Or other relatives? What are they going to do for you? What can they do for you? What will you do now? Rather than take shelter of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Lord Chaitanya taught that. He became the foremost preacher of the Bhagavatam, bringing it to everybody. And this was all arranged by Providence, that this foolish boy would have to play this role. These roles aren't always so pleasing. The role of Duryodhana isn't exactly a pleasing role to play. But yet there had to be some nemesis to the reign of Yudhisthira for his complete glory to be known. What about the role of Valmiki Rishi, Valmiki Muni? When he happens to be taking his bath and he sees some low-class hunter kill some birds making love, and it so much hurts him that he curses the hunter. This isn't something he would normally do. He's a sage. The next verse we'll learn how sages normally act. The last verse teaches this. They're always transcendental to things in this world. Why did he become angry at some low-class hunter doing what he always does? Killing some ever-living entities simply for his food. But he becomes angry and he curses him. And he just rattles out this curse. And then later he starts thinking about it. Thinking about, how can I do this? He feels so bad. And he actually speaks to Brahma about it. And Brahma says, this is Providence arrangement. Do you remember that meter you spoke that curse in? That is the meter you will describe Lord Rama's glories in. So by Providence arrangement, that same meter he used to curse that hunter was the meter that he would speak the Ramayana and write the beautiful Ramayana. So providence has its way of doing things in this world. It utilizes these three modes of material nature which composes this creation and utilizes them to carry on its will. So many things like that, are simply the arrangement of providence, so that the Lord's more important mission can be carried out. So, Lord Chaitanya, he taught the importance, and it came down to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada urged his disciples to produce it and distribute it. Don't stop producing and distributing it. Just like here we are at Talavana, and a major part of our mission is that we grow food. And, we offer that food to Krishna and we distribute it. So, but, you don't do that once. It has to go on day after day and year after year for a whole lifetime of one generation. And then if another generation doesn't take it up, everything just turns to desert or swamp or weeds, trees, and it's all gone. So similarly, we don't just distribute the Bhagavatam for a few years and then rest on the glory of our laurels. Oh, we went out and distributed the Bhagavatam. And certainly some people were saved, but what about all these other rascals? The world's full of them. So it's a mission that has to go on. There's no escaping it. The Brahmins, the devotees, they have to produce and distribute for the glory of Lord Chaitanya, for Srila Prabhupada's glory. That this is the only thing that can save a person in Kali Yuga is the Bhagavatam. And then if they need to know where to live and what to eat, if they're still worried about those things, as most people are, then, they can see our other example. You just grow some food and you eat. You make some house. You don't need a fishing mansion. You don't need what everybody builds nowadays, no less than 3,600 square feet of house, big roof, big attic, stuff in there. Maybe when you're old, you do need some central air and heating. Otherwise, you're always cold and you're always hot. But, if you don't learn how to tolerate these things in this world, then we may become attached to perfect temperature. Everything is providence's will. A little austerity, can make us more fixed on, leaving this place behind. After all, when you get down to it, especially in Kali Yuga, Prabhupada would warn us. He would warn us. You can ask Gokula, don't come back. You don't know what Kali Yuga is going to be like. Just remove Lord Chaitanya's movement from the scene. And there's no such thing as Vedic culture. It becomes destroyed. It's the time of the Malechas and the Yavanas. They have their time. Otherwise, they're always kept in check. And they have some place, They get, they have some jungle they can live in. Vedic culture is very, benevolent. There's a place for everyone. It's not like they take over the jungle and they make pasture so that they can grow more food for commercialism, so that they can, have more and more wealth at their disposal. Their wealth is, in the natural things of the earth. Yeah, they have gold, they have silver, they have jewels and diamonds, They have these things. But, they live a life of Vedic Dharma, where you have different classes of men doing their work and everybody's offering it to God. And there's only so much you can get out of life. And there's not this intense greed to get more and more and more of this wealth from commercialization of everything and the invention of things that intrigue people and consumerism. It doesn't exist. Everybody has their basic necessities. food, shelter, clothing, medical help, consultation when you need it, and, preparation for the next world. You do your Dharma and you remember Krishna and you go back home to Godhead. That's what life is about. Not just accumulating sense enjoyment in this world. So, we teach people that, all right, you get a little shelter, and you take part in the community, and, you eat simply. And, and there's plenty of time to chant Hare Krishna and to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, hear from the devotees. And this is the life of a devotee. This is the life that Lord Chaitanya loved. We won't fall into trance like him. But, every devotee learns to appreciate the simple things. To take a bath for Krishna. To somehow ever get warm for Krishna so you can serve him. To be able to have health or to deal with our ill health. All the simple things in life, to be able to have some clothing, whether you make it or you get it inexpensively. I mean, I've never had a problem having dhotis. Maybe it's, one of the perks that goes along with being a temple president. If they can't give you something, somebody's always giving you a dhoti. My wife hasn't bought clothes practically since we've been married. Bought a few clothes. I mean, Indian people, they think it's a big thing. They're giving it charity. They bring us their old clothes. So it just happens they have a lot of Indian clothes in it because they're Indians. So we utilize those types of clothes. They give their money to the Swami Narayana temple and they give us their old clothes. So I mean, and Sukadeva Goswami says the same thing in the Bhagavatam. What's the problem? Can't you use your arm for a pillow? And can't you lay down anywhere? Can't you find something to wear? And there's some old clothes. And even Lord Chaitanya's pastime, Sanatana Goswami had this wonderful charter given to him by one of his relatives after, when he renounced his prominent position in the Mughal government. And he went and saw Lord Chaitanya. Eventually he kind of got the hint through the Super Soul that, this wasn't so pleasing to Lord Chaitanya. I've renounced everything and I'm walking around with this expensive charter on my shoulder. So he went and exchanged it with some mendicant on the Ganga and took his, the mendicant had washed his charter in the Ganga and it was lying on the beach, drying. It had some holes in it, but, just an old charter. So he exchanged his brand new charter. I mean, first the mendicant thought, why are you poking fun at me? Because, you think somebody just being sarcastic, take my new charter. Take your charter. Oh, smart aleck, who you think you are? You're just going to make fun of my, my situation? No, he had to convince the guy that, no, I'm serious. You take this nice charter, it's a good charter. I'm a renunciate. I just want your charter. And he did that. And when he met Lord Chaitanya again, Lord Chaitanya said, what happened to your nice charter? He said, well, I felt that, for someone who's renounced, it wasn't very conducive to renunciation, so I gave it to somebody and took their old charter in exchange. Lord Chaitanya was very pleased. We can never imitate, we can't even imitate the austerity of the Goswamis. But we can follow their instructions, to live simply and to always have that. We say think high, but what does that mean? That means that we're thinking like Parikshit about going back home to Godhead. What does a man do at the time of death? What do you do? That's what he's teaching all of his people. Just as he took care of them in his life, now he's teaching them, what do you do at the time of death? We hear about Krishna. We want to be hearing the Bhagavatam. We don't want to, like Pundarik was in that terrible situation at the nursing home. It's just, you know, it wasn't like they were mean, they were nice, they were professional, but they're materialists in a secular, fruitive society. So they're just looking at all the fruitive programs, you know, that came during our time, our generation, because that's where all those people come from, my generation. So they're looking at Bonanza. You know, you may not know what that is. It's just a cowboy show. Supposedly pious cowboy show. Nobody never says anything that they were ranchers, because they don't even have a hint of what kind of cowboys they were. Just a perverted cowboy, perverted reflection of the real cowboys. But that's what they watch. And other wonderful programs like I Love Lucy. You know, these old programs. And so Pundarika, you could see how much it was affecting his mentality. He had doubt about going back home to Godhead. I mean, I know, I went and saw him the most. I know the doubts that he had. But what could we do? Eventually we were able to do something, combining together. And he got to go to India and have, you know, Radhanath Maharaj and his disciples chanting to him. Instead of, you know, he was getting prasadam all the time. You know, instead of watching TV, they would sound the conch shells and people would worship the deities. And you'd see these things. You were in that atmosphere. It was conducive for what? Not for just trying to squeeze out the last little bit of sense gratification you can out of this world, but for going back home to Godhead. He was like prepared. And he left the world in 4 months. No telling how long they would have made him drag on. Nowadays they think that's wonderful to keep you dragging on. Just drag on. Drag on and drag on. You know, my friend Vijay, his mom is just dragging on the respirator. The sister tried to take him off, and Vijay said, if you do that again, I'm calling the police.
Oh.
Because he's so attached, he can't give up. But look at the situation. Just dragging on while the nurse sits there because he has to go to work, and she has the TV on. Playing all those wonderful programs. Now, the mom did show some expression when he came back from Puri and put Jagannath Baladev and Subhadra in front of her, because all she could look is straight ahead. And she opened her eyes and there was Jagannath Baladev, Subhadra. Wonderful. But still, that's our modern medicine. They just drag you on and drag you. I mean, Pundarika would have probably lived a year or more in that situation. Always giving you some medicine to keep the machine running. You know, while all you do is just sit there, tormented. You know. So he goes and bees with Krishna. Isn't that a wonderful English grammar? He goes and bees with Krishna. In 4 months, he's back home, back to Godhead.
Actually, he left on the appearance day of Radhakund also.
Wow. Let me just see the difference, you know. They think that it's, don't tell them what they think. They think it's almost primitive. That you can't live longer. Live longer for what? You know, they think that you're enjoying sense gratification when how much can anyone enjoy in such a situation? I mean, it's terrible. But you just become a devotee and you're actually concentrating on going home. All you need is some inspiration. Pundarika couldn't find no inspiration in that situation. Put him in the right situation. I mean, even Dwijari, I mean, golly, it was within a year from he first bowed down and I was watching him. He would do this every morning. And he was coughing so much. He had some respiratory problems. And then it started. What is the cause of this? They couldn't diagnose it right. And finally they did. Well, I can't even think of how they say the word. Themio something, the cancer. Yeah, it forms like a crust around your lungs. It hurts to breathe until you can't breathe no more. And within a year he was gone, but he was encouraged by devotees who were there. He was encouraged to go back home to Godhead. He was prepared to go back home to Godhead. You know, he didn't want to even stay in this world no more as soon as he couldn't get up on his own and go to the bathroom on his own. I mean, you know, just everything became a complete humiliation in life. He was ready to go back home to Godhead. And that's what he did in a few days' time after that. What, Maharani?
I gotta go, so I wanna, we found out in the herd also, Srila Prabhupada said Srinji's age was 10 years old.
10 years old?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I was wondering about that. I thought he was about 12. But yeah,
I
10.
thought he was like even older a little bit.
Yeah, person, they can be pretty potent, a young Brahmin boy.
So that's
you know?
probably why when Maharaj Parikshit saw him, he's so small, he cannot converse with him, like, why did you do this? Or, you know, I'm a good king or whatever. You know, he didn't say anything because he was 10 years old.
Well, his father was there.
Yeah, he didn't chastise him.
Then he probably, Maharaj Parikshit probably felt bad, you know, put a snake around you, Maharaj. Sorry, you know, I don't know what got into me, you know. I mean, he was in trance. He wasn't pretending. I mean, that's what was his Brahminical prowess. He was actually not in his body. His body was in trance. He was somewhere else. You know?
But this is so hard for a 10-year-old to figure this all out. He
Yeah.
just did it because
He learned the hard way.
Also,
Mother
Prabhu,
Hari
you were
Bhani.
talking about people that have to play parts that aren't so relishable. It just reminded me of one time Leela Avatar and I went with Dinabandhu Prabhu and we went to Javat, that's the village where Srimati Radharani lived after she was married to Abhimanyu, and then Jatila, her mother-in-law, and Kuchila were there, always like harassing. And so the temple there actually was so amazing. The deities in that place are called Radharada Kanta. And they had also some paper mache deities that weren't on the altar still. They were off in a little room. But they were deities of Jatila and Kuchila and Abhimanyu. And Prabhu said that, Prabhu, we should never think, like, this is, like my tendency, those pastime spoilers, like they're, because they were assuming that difficult role to actually churn, he said, the Parakiya Rasa, and playing their part and playing it perfectly. So, just make
Yeah, the Manu is Krishna's pure part and parcel. Another example of that is Advaita Acharya and Yananda always fighting. If one thinks that takes the side of one, but it even goes as far as in the Chaitanya Bhagavatam to say if one takes the side of one Vaishnava against another, that's not a very good situation. So to take the side of Advaita and think Nityananda is, think of him in some material way, or take the side of Nityananda and think of Advaita Acharya is, it's not a very good situation. One has to see that their quarreling is transcendental, and they're just having fun with one another.
like teasing.
Sort of, yeah. So, yeah, it's, everything is working under Krishna's control. But, we have our role to play to somehow ever, teach people not to harm the innocent animals and to take prasadam. But Prabhupada was his mission was to distribute the knowledge of the Bhagavatam because he didn't take up social activism and even didn't want his disciples also to be standing in front of these places. Quite possibly he foresaw that his mission would be stifled, that the government would have nothing to do with it. It would be seen as criminal to be involved in lobbying against, and PETA doesn't usually do criminal things, although they're so socially active. But there were social activists that attempted to bomb slaughterhouses, and that's criminal. And it wouldn't have taken long if our movement was involved in something like that the whole thing would have been shut down. Prabhupada had the intelligence to know who he was dealing with, and didn't want any part of that. Dr. Jesse.
I've seen in a couple places where Prabhupada has referred to what we're doing as the peaceful revolution.
Yeah, and it's there in the books. He speaks strongly. But again, it's someone speaking strongly, his point of view based upon the Shastra, and people can take it or leave it. It's another thing when you force somebody to take something, that becomes political. And you're taking on the whole Malecha and Yavana world. Of which, is the vast majority of the world. Somebody from New Orleans on either Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp, whatever.
So you remember tomorrow's your day too?
Tomorrow's my day to give class?
Yeah.
All right, so I get to do the last verse. That'll be nice. So I'm going to stop now so I have something to say tomorrow, Okay, Shri Prabhupada.